Well, hello there. It's your girl, Mary B. Welcome back to another episode of Something's Gotta Give. And if my intro threw you off a little bit, because you like, why is this girl singing to me right now? Well, the truth is, I'm always doing little hums and rhymes, and I'm the friend that always turns their sentences into songs. That's just how my brain works. And I think it's time for me to be a little more authentic to my personality on this podcast. I think the reason why I'm able to embrace these very difficult emotions and experiences that I've been through in life is because I am, at the end of the day, someone who is very joyful and very childlike. And I just wanted to portray that a little bit more on my art platform. So I hope you're going to be okay with that because you're just going to have to be, buddy. Thanks for making space for me. But today's podcast is going to be about my experiences with learning the power of no. I have been a people pleaser for quite some time. And I think when you first begin to stand up for yourself and place boundaries and start really utilizing the word no, you start to learn just how powerful it is to stand in your truth. And standing in your truth often requires for you to say no more often time than yes. And in the past, specifically in my 20s, right, I'm learning who I am, I'm learning all of the things that I don't like in my life. And how I was able to do that is because I was consistently saying yes. I was continuously always attending to the person that was in front of me instead of attending to the person that's inside of me. And I often found myself feeling half empty instead of half full, always having a conversation within my mind on how I wish I stood up for myself. I wish I said no, but I was just so uncomfortable to get through that little conversation of being like, hey, this isn't good for me. I don't like this, etc. And so I would have a longer conversation with myself than needed because I was living out a scenario that I could have shut down when it was first introduced to me. And I feel like we are going to be placed in the same tests and the same life scenarios. And the reason why we keep taking this same test is because we're answering incorrectly. And most of the time it's because we're choosing to say yes, we're choosing to neglect the lesson that's at hand, and the lesson just keeps repeating. And so for me personally, I got tired of retaking the same test. I felt like I just kept failing a grade. How embarrassing. Imagine, well, first off, I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody who had to repeat a grade, but maybe you had to repeat a grade because you literally just needed a little bit more time to digest the information. And that can be the same for life lessons. But me personally, I felt like I was purposely failing a grade because I was scared to advance to the next level, or I didn't know I was capable of advancing to the next level, or I just didn't have enough energy to muster up the courage to advance to the next level. And I think that's all fine and dandy to operate like that throughout your 20s. I feel like 20s are there for you to create havoc, create a mess, learn from your mistakes. But the key word is to learn from your mistakes. And so moving into this beautiful decade of the 30s, I really am standing on business, and I do not ever want to say no for the benefit of anyone else but myself. And it's not to offend anyone along the way. My goal is to never offend other people. My goal is to really tend to myself in the way that I've never been able to before. And sometimes it's really, really difficult to tell someone that you've been involved with for a very long time, whether that be a friend, a family member, a lover, hey, I am done with this test. I am done having to go through this cycle again and again and again. Because what happens is when we ignore a situation is brought forward to us. we know our initial reaction is the truth of how we feel. So someone makes you feel uncomfortable, right? Someone is doing something that makes your skin itch. Someone is making you feel not so great. A situation is making you feel not so great. A substance is making you feel not so great. But then you don't address it right at the moment. And the reason why you don't address it right at that moment is because you know if enough time passes, I won't feel the heat of this emotion that's coming up right now. And I'll convince myself that maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it's not that deep. Maybe I don't need to react how I thought I needed to react when that scenario was put forth to me in the first place. And so you kind of tuck it away somewhere in your brain, or you pretend like it doesn't happen, or you give an excuse as to why, yes, this can continue to happen. But then some time goes by, whether that be a few months, a year, a couple of days, or a couple hours, depending on how long you've been in this cycle. The longer you've been in the cycle, the shorter the periods between another emotional reaction will occur. So if you've been an addict for years, it's only going to take maybe until the next time you pick up a substance to feel like, oh my gosh, here I am saying yes again to something I really should be saying no to, right? Or say you just got into a friendship with somebody and it's their first red flag. And you knew at that first red flag, hey, I don't know if I can continue this, but you continue to say yes because you haven't built that trust within yourself yet to know that it's time to say no, right? So whether the interval have just started or it's been something you've been battling with and ignoring for a long time, notice that the points of the red flag came up regardless, right? And oftentimes we ignore that red flag and we perpetuate the cycle because we chose to ignore the red flag. And know that because you ignored it the first time means you did not learn your lesson. So that test is going to come again. And it's going to come again. It's going to come again. It's going to become so frequent that it might get to a point where it's in your day-to-day, right? You might be so frustrated, like, damn, like, why I keep finding myself in this position? It's because you have neglected this test for so long. And the only way it's going to disappear is if you answer correctly. Which goes back to the beginning of what I was saying in this podcast, is oftentimes the correct answer is no. I no longer choose to continue being in this thing that is triggering this negative emotional response for me. Emotions are here to teach you things about yourself, and they're often your lessons and your guidance throughout this life. And I found myself way too often in scenarios where the intervals became really, really short. When I was drinking all the time, me being embarrassed about the night before maybe happened once every 6 months, once every year. And then it started happening once every few weeks. And then it got to a point where it was happening once every few days. Until I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta change this whole thing. And the answer was sobriety. And I knew the whole time I was drinking that sobriety was gonna be the answer, right? It's the same thing with friendships that I've had, right? It's, ooh, this person is no longer in alignment with me, but I love them so much, right? So how can I just stand up for myself, right? Well, it's simply with the way your emotion is teaching you the first time it came up, right? And so instead of ignoring the truth of how you feel, I've learned how to speak on how I feel when I feel it. So I don't have to be in this position again. Using your mouth is so powerful. Speaking your truth is so powerful. All of this energy that's stored in our body, you can release it by self-expression. Self-expression comes out of your mouth, comes out of you being able to speak your truth. And I just really say this because I think it is time for everyone to really understand that no is your friend. It doesn't seem like it is, right? Because Who likes to hear the word no? And oftentimes, because we don't like to hear things, we don't like to do them. But what if you just change your perspective? What if you just embraced the power of standing up for yourself? Embraced the truth of you not wanting to do something or not wanting to be a certain kind of way. And the only way you can change is if you embrace the word no. Is if you break off the cycles, if you break off the friendships, if you break off the patterns. No is the greatest word that I have implemented into my daily life. The more I started saying no, the better my life became, the more peaceful my life became, the more okay I became with myself. My inner child never got to say no, ever. I never had the choice of making a decision for myself, so I learned to not necessarily stand up for myself. I didn't learn how to say no. I was perpetually trained time and time again to be a yes person for other needs, for other people's needs, for everything outside of me. And I was like, oh, that's why I have such a hard time saying no, is because my inner child never, ever, ever had the opportunity to even know who I am and to embrace who I am and to be confident in who I am and learn that no is a key factor in shaping who you are. So, defend yourself. And say no and end things when you know that you have to. Oh my gosh, there is so much power in cultivating confidence with knowing you ain't going for that no more, baby boo. Okay? And I am that person that's never going for that no more. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. I hope that you face something that you've been struggling with this week and you finally urged the nerve inside of you to simply say, not anymore. Not anymore. Let me see what life looks like the moment I say, not anymore. No, I don't want to do this. I'm giving you all the courage, all the light, and all the love that you need throughout that difficult decision-making time in your life. Until next week, y'all, have a great one, okay? Mwah. Love y'all. Bye-bye.